Resume the recording just for our purposes. And then I'm just going to say thank you for coming to the third working group meeting for the Shared Mobility as a Service and Mobility on Demand Intercommittee Working Group. And now I'm going to turn it over to Secretary Roger Millar for some welcoming remarks.
Well, good morning, everybody, or afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Brian's put together a great meeting. My work will be done here in about 30 seconds, but what we want to do as a team is we're going to get a great presentation from Go Vermont, and then we're going to talk about the draft CEO one-pager. I think getting some common understanding and acceptance of terms is a really important first step, and I'm looking forward to that conversation. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lagerberg to take us forward. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Roger. Just to be clear, I think we have a couple goals for the meeting today. One is to work through those 4 issues in our breakout groups. And I said yesterday, kind of encouraging you to take a look at it, the document, the one-pager, which is actually 3 pages, but we call it a one-pager. To look at that document so that you're prepared, because we're going to do lightning rounds, 10 minutes for each of those topics. So I look forward to that. I think it'll be pretty interesting. I think here at WashDOT, we use that technique quite a bit to get a lot of feedback quickly and a lot of perspective quickly. So I look forward to that. The other thing that I think we're focused on is getting agreement on what the next steps are. Where are we going from here? I'll remind you that we're looking for feedback on the entire paper, just not in this meeting today. The meeting today is going to focus on those 4 sections. If you have comments on the rest of the paper, please send them to Richard and so don't lose them. Make sure you get them to Richard. We're looking for those as well. So with that, I think let's do some roll call. Richard, can you help me with that and just kind of go down the list? And what I'm hoping is he'll just do a quick name and a quick introduction.
I'm going to start on my screen. I've got King to my left. King.
King G, Director for Safety and Mobility with AASHTO.
Dan Courier.
Dan Courier with the Vermont Agency of Transportation, Go Vermont.
Kenneth Buckeye.
Yes, Ken Buckeye with Minnesota Department of Transportation.
Michael Wandler.
Good morning, Michael with the Washington State Department of Transportation.
And then we've got Brian.
And good morning, and it is a good morning here. Beautiful, the sun's out, so I'm celebrating that. Brian Lagerberg, the Director of Public Transportation at WashDOT.
Matt Kenna.
Yeah, hi, Matthew Kenna. I'm a planner in Public Transportation Division here at WashDOT.
Jeannie Ward, excuse me, Jeannie Ward-Waller.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Jeannie Ward-Waller at Caltrans. I'm the Deputy Director for Planning and Modal Programs. And well, I think I'm also representing the AASHTO Council on Active Transportation, this group.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's I think a critical part. I think people also should recognize, who you're representing here on the working group. Phil Burgoyne-Allen.
Hi, I'm Phil Burgoyne-Allen. I'm an Associate Program Manager at AASHTO, working with our Council on Active Transportation and our Committee on Environment and Sustainability.
Roger Millar.
Roger Millar, Secretary of Transportation for Washington State and Chair of the AASHTO Public Transportation Council.
Gene Rustman.
Oh, hello there. I couldn't get it off. Gene Rustman, Michigan DOT Administrator of the Office of Passenger Transportation and member of the Council on Passenger Transportation.
Thank you. Allie Lohman.
Hi, Allie Lohman. I'm a mobility program analyst here at AASHTO, and I support the 4 intercommittee working groups on emerging mobility areas.
Mark Sprick.
I'm Mark Sprick, Texas Department of Transportation. I'm the Director of Administration and Program Management in our Public Transportation Division.
And last but certainly not least, Melissa Batula.
Hi, I'm Melissa Batula. I'm the Executive Deputy Secretary for PennDOT, and I'm representing the Council on Highways and Streets, but I am also a member of the Active Transportation Group.
All right, and I think that's all we have in our room.
All right, thank you for that, Richard. Just one of the things I've learned in these meetings is that introduction serves two purposes. One was to ensure that everybody's system is working. The second is that if we can get you talking early, there's a higher probability that you'll talk later as well. So let's make sure that that worked. With that, Dan, are you ready to go and talk to us about Go Vermont?
I sure am. And so I'm going to talk about Go Vermont. I'm going to talk about our Mobility on Demand Sandbox grant, the results. I'm also going to discuss some of the, where Vermont is now and where we're looking to go in the future. And so next slide. And so, just to offer some background. Vermont really picked up our on-demand speed in 2017 when we were awarded a Mod Sandbox grant. And we really went out to help fill a well-known gap. And that is that, an online trip planner for both fixed and flexible transit services didn't exist. And wouldn't it be great to have one? And so, with this in mind, we developed, a proposal with the following visions. From the Vermont side, we really were looking for a safe, reliable, multimodal transportation system that really promoted our quality of life and economic well-being. The Mod Sandbox grant had visions and objectives of its own, really about integration, innovative business model, equitable, as well as partner-driven. And then the trip planner itself. We really wanted to offer one of these, one-click, one-call systems, within inside of the state of Vermont to offer really all options for trips in all modes in one place. Next slide, Richard. And so, our focus, to accomplish this vision really, started around the flexibility of our data and making it real time. And so, we focused on open source, as we started, and really creating, and amplifying the GTFS and GTFS Flex specifications and really building those out, right? And so, and then, and really looking at our transit routes and our bus stops, as well as improving our statewide AVL system so that we actually could offer, real flexibility and real knowledge about our system. And then we went and focused on working on the Open Trip Planner platform itself and really building out what would be the flex specifications for the Open Trip Planner so that we would have a platform to then display and search through for our open data with the GTFS and GTFS Flex. What resulted really was, our trip planner, as we call it, the Go Vermont Trip Planner, or the Vermont Trip Planner, depending on who you're talking with or what room you're in. And what it did is it brought together all of our transit services, our ADA deviated fixed routes. It offered flag stops, as well as the incorporation of TNCs, and really helped to connect our rural communities to the regional providers that we have in Vermont. Ultimately, it was offering better public knowledge and access to a flexible trips, which is what, one of the outcomes that we really needed. And then it also provided, an open platform and approach, and which the community really supported as we moved forward. Next slide, Richard. And so I bring this up. It's one of those great, case studies when you first talk about it, like, why are we doing this work, right? Well, it's because, Go Google, right, comes up and says messages like this: sorry, we can't calculate directions using transit for your origin to get to your destination, right? And therefore you're left with the, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how I'm going to get there. I guess I'm going to have to drive my car. There's no other options available to me. And really what we were finding is that there was a limitation in our when we first developed, were utilizing the GTFS, data. Really, we were limited to a quarter-mile search from our transit routes. This was a limitation, that's not really great in our rural communities, because most times we end up traveling 3/4 to a half a mile to a transit stop to get access. And so while it's great in the urban centers, we were finding a lot of gaps in our rural communities. And so what was born of this, next slide, please, is the slide you see here with a screenshot of our open trip planner. And so, this same origin and destination, shows that, with a short walk, or drive if you choose, you could get to a closer bus stop, hop on a transit route to get to your final destination in Montpelier. Our trip planner offers more flexible knowledge about the different modes that are available. So it's just not transit, right? You can see 3 transit routes are available in the screenshot, but also there's a carpool option. And if you felt like biking or walking, you could also do that as well. And the trip planner would give you the means to understand how to complete that trip. Next slide. And so, Vermont, it really comes down to, it was all in for us, right? We have a lot of support with our 7 public transit providers to help us to adopt this type of service, this type of platform, this open data framework that we're really focused on. This screenshot is from our largest transit provider in Vermont, Green Mountain Transit. And you can see it's a live map right on their website. It actually shows all their bus routes and active bus locations, so that any rider within inside the Green Mountain Transit service territory can know what routes are active. They can click on them, get the schedule, and they can see where the bus is located. And so really it comes down to really providing better awareness for our riders. Next slide. And so, and we also, the GTFS Flex and the AVL systems that we helped develop also lent to a partnership with the Transit app. And so statewide, we partnered with the Transit app to develop one app that could be downloaded that would cover all transit services anywhere in Vermont. And so with this app, you're able to, to connect from, Southern Vermont all the way up to Chittenden County. And you can basically be successful using transit to complete that entire trip. And so all of that is leveraged through the Transit app in our open data format. Next slide. And the other thing that, this is really where Go Vermont really, is like the flagship for, here in the state, right? We're the central location where all this data, our applications, all of our AVL systems, the trip planner, the local and intercity bus schedules, our carpool and vanpool matching services all come to live, right? And so it's one central clearinghouse. You can go there for all things mobility in Vermont, and you can be successful with hopefully one call and one click. That's always the mantra for the Go Vermont to get to where you need to go. And then I will just say, we focus a lot on technology, but we still have a call center that we also have for the Go Vermont program. It's there for anyone that needs to call in to help with any of the tools to navigate, or even to call a provider to help schedule a trip. And so, which in Vermont, we still have a lot of rural countryside with very limited cell service, poor internet quality. And so that phone call is still really important to be able to make. Next slide. And so, I wanted to share, and this is literally my last slide, only wanted to keep this to 10 minutes or less. And so really wanted to just focus on some best practices and talk about, the future that Vermont is thinking of. And so, for us, it really started with, as we go to work on developing tools for shared mobility, and really focus on MOS and MOD integrations, this real-time data really comes to bear as being really important, probably one of the more important things you can have in your system. Without having this real-time information, you actually have pretty limited abilities in searching and then booking trips, because without real time, you have a limited window that then you can see to discover your options. We also learned that identifying the technical outcomes as you start a project are really important, right? What are the needs that you're out to identify, right? What gaps do you need to fill? How are you going to accomplish these? All of those are really important to lay out as you move forward with any type of system. For us, we had a lot of support, when we built, the GTFS Flex and Open Trip Planner, Flex route specifications, we got a lot of support from the Open Data Platform community, and that really helped us to kind of step through the process. And so I would, encourage anyone that's going to be incorporating these tools, softwares, shared mobility options, to identify your own technical outcomes before developing anything. And you really need to have an eye for what is the long-term implications when it comes for replicating and then scaling the services. And so our vision was always a statewide system. If you're focused on smaller, maybe metropolitan centers, county, half of your state, whatever the scenario is, right? Just make sure you're matching, your need to the type of software, the type of mobility options, you're obviously leveraging. For us, the path included the GTFS Flex, the Mobility on Demand Open Trip Planner platform, our AVL systems, all of it coming together to bear on our trip planner, as well as the transit app. And actually it's been opening up more windows for us. Vermont is working on our first microtransit service right now. So that service territory being operated by VIA, all of those, are now next steps for us, right? To then have that integration into these services. And really it's integration that I want to talk about last, right? Where our Vermont's vision is really about make sure we're prepared to integrate in the future, right? And so we don't know everything right now, right? What we do have available is wonderful for our rural communities, but it's just the tip of the iceberg as near as I can tell. So there's a lot of, for Vermont, we still have to identify the available seats on our demand response vehicles that travel out and do our, NEMT trips. And can we get those seats filled by other riders? How do we integrate, with our VIA service? And we're actually testing the waters with that right now with our Open Trip Planner, as well as the transit app to see if we can get that service territory included. So people can then book directly, through our app for a ride on that on-demand service, along with seeing all the fixed routes as well. And then, ultimately, Vermont, our vision is still, to provide a safe, reliable, and multimodal transportation system that promotes Vermont's quality of life and economic well-being. And making sure we're really providing trips for the rural areas of our state are going to be critical to meet that vision, making sure equitable service is provided everywhere. So that is all I've got to share. Thank you. And in case anyone wants to read my, oh my goodness, 100-page report, it's right here.
Wow. Thank you, Dan. That was awesome. You touched on a lot of the topics that we'll be discussing. So thank you for that. And unfortunately, I don't think we have time for questions. But I think Dan is available afterwards to answer questions as well.
I sure am.
And if you have questions, of course, there's his contact information. Again, all this PowerPoint as well as the agenda for this meeting will all be posted to the working group's webpage on the Council on Public Transportation's website. And now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and get us back into regular mode.
All right. So thank you for that, Richard. Let me just talk briefly about the working group format that we're going to use. Richard is going to perform some magic in just a moment, and we're all going to be sent to small groups. There are facilitators in each of the groups. Those facilitators will help us work through the 4 topics. We have 10 minutes per topic. We scheduled a 5-minute break in the middle so that we can kind of maintain our enthusiasm and get something to drink. And again, our focus is on those 4 topics. It's going to be quick. It's going to be get your ideas out there so that they can be incorporated and provided to Richard and his team as they revise the one-pager. I believe the facilitators are taking notes and are responsible for gathering the comments and bringing them back. One thing that we will not be doing, which often happens in a situation like this, we're not going to come back and have each facilitator share what they learned. This is just going to be, we're going to gather the information. That information then will be used for the next version of the one-pager. Anything else I should say at this time, Richard?
I think you hit on all the relevant issues that we need to discuss for the breakout group. So at first, on page 2 of the agenda, we're going to touch on the topics of crucial questions, state DOT roles, each of those for about 10 minutes each. So yes, it's kind of a lightning round. So I apologize. I didn't want to spend this entire meeting talking about the one-pager. I figured that just would be too much. But yes, we have to do sort of a 10 minutes on each of those topics. We're going to take a 5-minute break just so you can get up, walk around, and go get a drink, relax for a few minutes, then come back to your breakout group. We're going to stay in the breakout groups. And then we're going to talk about, until the very end, issues to watch and potential next steps. I'm going to be honest with you. I just put these in these particular order. If a group feels strongly about, talking about potential next steps before crucial questions, that's up to the group. That's to the individual group, up to the individual's facilitator. Each of the documents is already saved in Redline, and so as you're being edited, this will be edited using Redline, so you will be able to see the changes and the questions and the comments that you're making from each of the facilitators. But otherwise, it's going to be all to help us move the one-pager to, I guess, what I would call a draft number 2. And we'll take all the comments back and wrap them into a draft number 2. And now I'm going to rely on Allie to help me make these working groups happen. So I assume I just have to hit breakout rooms. And now I'm going to open up all my rooms, and then you all are going to disappear. And apparently I get to stare at a blank screen. That's what I get to stare at. So I'm also going to try to keep the timing for the group. So by 2:20 Eastern time, or in the next 20 minutes, everybody should take a 5-minute break, regardless of where you're at. All right, y'all. Have a good breakout group. I'm going to drop into everybody's room to see how everyone's doing. So thank you so much again for participating in this process. I'm truly grateful and slightly nervous about hitting this button. So good luck. Thank you. Whoa.
I don't get a breakout room. It's okay, Richard.
Yeah, you don't get that lucky. You don't get that lucky. I don't understand why that happened. So hang on 1 second. Roger, I had the same thing with you. So give me 1 second. Let me assign you to the groups. For the groups. Dan, are you not?
I don't know. Am I not?
Hang on one second. Let me see if I can. It's not. Here you go. Let me assign you. So your group is number. Hi, Dan. All right, we're all back.
All right.
Hopefully that worked out really well. From what I was seeing, I thought everyone was doing a fantastic job. So thank you for everybody. Thank you, everyone. Brian, right back to you. You want to wrap it up, and we can even end early.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think, Richard, now I'm more convinced than ever, you're gonna have a hard time keeping this to a page, but work your magic.
That we will. I'll let Allie do the magic.
All right. So let's talk about next steps briefly. I think the next step in terms of this document is that, Richard, you and your team are going to take it back and kind of sift through everything and compile draft number 3. And I think we will have meeting number 4 next quarter. And I assume, Richard, you'll send us out draft number 3 prior to meeting number 4?
The next draft will go out definitely before meeting number 4. The objective is to, if King, please correct me, the objective is to get this approved by the working group and finalized before the AASHTO AASHTO's spring meeting. Is that correct? That's our objective. You're muted.
Too many Zoom calls. I would encourage everyone not to strive for perfection. This is to be a living document. As the events and the industry advances, we'll continue to update it. So just make sure it has what you want and not wordsmith it to death.
No, I agree with that, King. And I think also it would behoove us to have staff maybe quietly run this by FTA and perhaps our partners at ITS America before we go public with it, just to make sure. I mean, FHWA is not in this space, but FTA very much is.
Noted. Thank you.
And I'd also encourage you, if you have comments on the rest of the paper, please do send them to Richard. I think we're looking at our next meeting in June. And I think one of the topics in that next meeting is, are there issues that we want to delve deeper into and maybe draft a couple white paper issue papers on those topics in support of this. So that's something to be thinking about between now and the next meeting.
All right.
So that next meeting's not on our calendars yet, correct?
It is not.
The sooner we can do that, the better.
Yes.
That still doesn't always help, but
And we're trying not to put it in the middle of summer during the nice weather when we all want to be outside.
yeah, I just need it not in the middle of other meetings.
I can only schedule. I can schedule. So
I know.
we can send out a recommendation, a doodle poll to see what everyone's availability. But I can still guarantee you not everyone's going to be able to make it.
Right, right. And if there's any gap between the doodle poll and when you actually schedule it, the doodle poll is out the window anyway.
Correct. But just I want to thank everybody. Thank you so much. I will send out if you wanted to provide your own particular comments. What I'll do is I can send out the Word version of the white paper in its entirety. If you wanted to make comments individually, please feel free to do that as well. Other than that, I think we can adjourn 4 minutes early. You can get 4 minutes back of your time. Of your work.
Right.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Richard.